first monthly manga reading log. So for the month of October, I read 92 volumes from 23 different series. I think if I shared my thoughts on each one of them, this video would end up being really long. So since this is my first one, I'm just gonna mention my top 5 reads of the month, my 2 least favorite reads, and then I'll just list the rest of the series that I read. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm gonna do these reading log videos because some months I really read a lot, like June, July, and August. This summer, I read over 100 volumes each of those months. So I guess just let me know in the comments if you like the way this video turns out and I can keep doing them this way, or if you'd rather have a quick synopsis of every series and just more concise thoughts from me about them. I could do that too, or something else. Feel free to give me ideas. I don't mind making longer videos. I'm just not sure if people would want to listen to me ramble on about these series. Also, I'll have links below to my anime list profile, which is where I track all the manga I read and all the anime I watch, as well as a link to my Instagram account. I pretty regularly post in my stories about my current reads, as well as my thoughts as I'm reading them. But before I get started, I apologize in advance that I'll probably mispronounce some of the titles, so please forgive me, and I'll make sure to put the titles of this series up on the screen as well. So I'll start off with the 5 series I enjoyed the most this month. My favorite read of the month was Erased. I read volumes 1 through 9. So this is a seinen mystery suspense series with some time travel in it. It follows a man in his late 20s who is able to briefly go back in time whenever something life-threatening is happening to someone around him. But then a major tragedy happens, and rather than just going back 5 minutes in time, he's sent all the way back to his elementary school days and has to try to figure out what he's supposed to do to change things. There are a lot of really dark and heavy topics because throughout the series, he's trying to stop a serial killer who targets children. There are definitely some creepy moments and also things like domestic violence, child abuse, but along with these heavier scenes, there are a lot of really sweet and heartwarming moments and a lot of really positive themes as well. I love the main boy in the story. His mom is just the best. His friend group is really cute, and I really like the character development he gets as the story goes. I watched the anime a couple of years ago and really enjoyed it, and the manga had been on my TBR for a while. My husband actually read it before me and was dying to talk to me about it, but when I read it, even though I knew what was going to happen, like the main plot points, I was really anxious and ended up reading the whole thing in 2 days. But the last couple volumes have content that wasn't in the anime, and the ending of the manga is different from the anime ending. So if you've only watched the anime but you enjoyed it, the manga is definitely worth reading as well. So the main story is volumes 1 through 8, and then volume 9 is a collection of extra chapters. So these are omnibus volumes, so this is 1 through 8, and then volume 9. And I really liked this last one. I thought it was going to be like a flash forward to show us their lives as adults, but it actually retold different parts of the story from the main story with extra details and from the perspective of different characters. But I thoroughly enjoyed reading this series, and I'm really glad I finally got around to it. Next, I read volumes 1 to 10 of Blue Lock, and I really got sucked in. This is a seinen sports series about soccer. I was hesitant to start this one because there's another soccer series that I really love that I knew I would just compare it to. And I didn't really like the premise. A bunch of teenage boys pitted against each other to become more and more egotistical so that Japan's national soccer team can find the best striker. So maybe 2 months ago, I read half of the first chapter, and then I put it down because I really didn't like the character design of the adult who would be egging on the kids against each other. He really reminded me of a character from Yowamushi Pedal that I really couldn't stand. But I was ready to pick up the series again last month, and I thought, even if I don't like the beginning, I'll give it a solid try. And then when I actually went to start it, I opened to the middle of volume 15 accidentally because I was reading it digitally. And I read a random chapter thinking it was the beginning and got confused. But then I realized and started at the beginning again in volume 1. So before starting again, I found out that the adult coach monitor character was being voiced in the anime by Levi's voice actor from Attack on Titan. And I literally just imagined him being Levi as I read it. And that made a world of difference. But once I actually got to the end of the first chapter, I was already getting sucked in. I knew the series wasn't going to be a heartwarming, power of friendship, teamwork kind of story, but I was just hoping it wouldn't be over-the-top aggression, trash-talking, hostility, because I'd hate reading something like that. But Anime Collective recently made a community post on their channel about the series, comparing it to just a really serious tryout. So viewing it like that rather than as a battle royale, I really enjoyed it. And I know people are describing it as a battle royale type of story. And while the kids are fighting to each keep their spot, a lot of the focus is actually put on each of them analyzing what they need to do as individuals to improve. And most of the elimination rounds do involve working together as a team to some extent. There are some things that I feel are flaws to the story, but a lot of them are actually addressed as you keep reading, so I was happy about that. I was also thinking the action depictions in the art style might be over the top ridiculous, because before I started reading, I had seen panels of like their whole bodies just being on fire, but I actually like the way they did it. The fire and sometimes steam imagery really convey the intensity of the players in those moments. And then later on, there are panels comparing the players to different types of animals like predators to again show the intensity of their playing and the movement and the moment that they're in. I actually grew up playing soccer and I was a striker, so that made it really fun to read and to see the different strengths and weaknesses of each of the characters. And of course, I love to see their backstories and their relationships with each other. So I definitely recommend this series if you like sports series in general. I was hooked by the end of the first chapter, and then I knew by the end of the first volume that it was going to be a good read for me. But I definitely don't think this series is going to be something for everyone. And if anyone wants to know, Isagi is my favorite character, and I also really like Bachira, Rin, and Nagi. The next series is Ashi, Volume 30. So this is that other soccer series I mentioned earlier. This one is a seinen series. And this volume that I read was a reread. The arc that it covers has been really fun with a lot of character development. Right now, the latest chapters are into volume 31 or 32, and I am reading them as they release. I really hope Ashi will get an English release because I feel like a lot of people would really enjoy the series. I was actually really surprised how many similarities there were between Aoashi and Blue Lock when I started reading Blue Lock. I thought by comparison, Aoashi would be a lot more teamwork and friendshipy, but just wanted to make sure everyone knows Aoashi really is good too. It's about a boy trying to get into a kind of elite youth team that has connections to pro teams. And even though everyone on the team works together as they have training and matches as a team, they are all also really serious about improving as individuals because the players are constantly being moved up and down between the A team, the B team, as well as the senior team that has pro players on it. It doesn't have as much of a battle royale feel, but everyone does have a healthy measure of competitiveness as they're there to become pros, not to become friends with each other. But volumes 30 and 31 just kind of finished up an arc, and now we're heading into the next one, and it looks like it's going to be really fun, so I'm excited about it. By comparison, I think I like the art style of Blue Lock a little better, but mainly just for the character designs, because both series really do a good job depicting the movement and intensity of the players. But I have to recommend the anime for Aoashi as well. It was animated so well, the art style is fantastic, the voice cast is so good. I really hope it'll get renewed for a season 2, but we'll see. My next favorite read was volume 3 of Kimi No Koe. This is a romance with some supernatural elements. Not really sure what demographic it is. I'd imagine josei, but it could be shoujo or even seinen. It reminds me a lot of My Happy Marriage, and I actually do like it more than My Happy Marriage. Rather than people having powers or different abilities, this one just has two people who can see the thoughts of other people. But there's an interesting twist on that. Also, for the most part, it follows from the man's perspective. He has a lot of trouble trusting people because he always knows their inner thoughts and intentions, but always ends up using that to his advantage business-wise. So he considers marrying a girl from a prestigious family and then finds out how she's been mistreated her whole life and wonders if she'll be someone that he'll be able to trust. But I've been really enjoying this series, and the latest volume had a lot of developments and answered a lot of questions I've had since the first volume. But I just found out volume 4 was released in September, so I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. I'm not really sure how long it's going to be, and I don't really want to pick up the physicals while it's still ongoing, but if it wraps up with volume 4 or 5 or 6, I might just end up getting it in Japanese because I really like the story and all the characters in it, and the art style is really beautiful. Of course, I'd love if it got licensed in English, but I'm not sure if it's gotten much attention outside of Japan, so we'll see. And the last one in my top reads was Skip and Loafer, a seinen slice of life series. I read volumes 1 to 7 and into volume 8. I enjoyed this one a lot more than I thought I would. I knew it was going to be about a girl from a small town moving to the city and becoming really loved by the people around her there. And that's basically what it's about. But I did really like this one. Honestly, I prefer a series that have really pretty art styles, and this one, the character designs are really simple and kind of playful, but I really like all the characters and seeing their interactions with each other and their character development. I really like how there are several characters who are just so genuine and sincere. Like the main girl, as I got to know her, she was super naive, but I really appreciated that. She's always so honest with everyone and isn't quick to judge people, and her personality is just so lovable. So I'm glad in the story we see that. Such different kinds of people are drawn to her. There are some parts of the story that felt really slow, and some parts of the story that I'm just really not interested in at all. But this is the way it is a lot of times when I read a slice of life series. But overall, I enjoyed it. And this was another one that had been on my TBR for a while. So I'm glad I finally got around to reading it. Everything else I read for the month, I either really enjoyed it as well or was just kind of neutral, except for these next two titles that I disliked. So the first one is Irresistible Mistakes, volumes 1 to 4. This one is a josei romance. I didn't realize until afterward that this series is based on a mobile game. So I'm not sure if I would have liked it more knowing the characters beforehand, but I really didn't like the premise of this series at all. So it starts with a woman who has a drunken one-night stand with someone from her company, and after she realizes it was with her boss, she becomes more interested in him despite finding out that he has a fiancé. And she continues to pursue him, seeming to get more and more excited that he wants her despite having someone else. So there are some misunderstandings and then a happy ending, but I just thought the plot was kind of weak. I didn't like the message it gave, and the characters were not likable at all. And I just felt really trashy while reading it. So this is one I would not recommend. The next one is We Were There, volumes 1 to 16. This is a shoujo romance series that I think a lot of people really like, so I apologize, but it was not for me. It follows a girl who initially dislikes a popular boy in her class that all the girls are in love with. It turns out that he's had some really tragic things that have happened to him and that continue to happen to him. And so as a result, he really struggles with his mental health. And we see how it affects everyone around him. I feel like the characters were made to seem really complex, but almost all of them were just so unlikable and irritating, being either very naive or deceptive or just hypocritical. And a lot of the plot developments were really frustrating and seemingly just for the sake of being frustrating. Also, a big thing that made it really hard to read was the art style. All the characters look really young, like when they're in high school, they look like 10-year-olds. And then when there's a time skip to their mid to late 20s, they still look like 15-year-olds. So it just made the reading experience a little weird and kind of hard to take seriously. There were some aspects that reminded me of certain series that I really like Sand Chronicles, Alhara Ride, Perfect World, but it's like all the most irritating parts of those series were combined to make We Were There, with none of the good parts or the compelling moments or good character development from those other series. I don't regret reading this one because it seems like it's viewed as a shoujo classic, so I would have read it eventually, but ultimately this one was not for me. The rest of the series that I read for the month, of the volumes I read physically, Play It Cool Guys, volumes 3 and 4, The Way of the House Husband, volumes 1 and 2, Tsubaki-cho Lonely Planet, volume 1, Daytime Shooting Star, volume 1, and the rest of the series I read digitally. Furare Girl, volumes 1 to 7, It Takes More Than a Pretty Face to Fall in Love, volumes 1 to 5, Mint Chocolate, volumes 1 to 5, Karen Ichijo Tempts Him, and its sequel, Mitsunaga Ojo is Trying to Control Himself, Toto Sugite Yominai, volumes 1 and 2, Zeiken de Kata Hon, volumes 1 and 2, My Love Mix-Up Volume 9, the webtoon Here You Are, Medalist Volumes 1 to 6, A World Where Everything Definitely Becomes BL versus The Man Who Definitely Does Not Want to Be in a BL, Volumes 2 and 3, The Reason We Fall in Love, Volume 1, and Two Colleagues in My Office Are Precious, So I Am Happy, Volumes 1 and 2. So I believe all these titles are on my anime list, so if you want to find out more about any of them, head over there for more information, or I'm always up to chat about my reads if you want to message me on Instagram. Again, I'd really appreciate any feedback in the comments about what kind of format you'd like to see in my future monthly reading log videos, as well as if you've read any of these series, what did you think of them? Let me know your thoughts down below. But I really appreciate every one of you who support my YouTube channel, and I'll see you again in another video. Thanks for watching.